how Muslims have not been assimilated in France the way they may be assimilated in this country, and whether that contributes to the problem that France had that hopefully we would not have here.
Well, it doesn't help, does it? The fact is that in France, though it is a democracy, there is a dogma that we don't experience here in the United States, and that is something called laïcité, which translates into secularism, but in fact is not the kind of secularism as in separation of church and state that we know here. Rather, French secularism is more of a disappearing of religion altogether, so that many Muslims, including young Muslims who may not be particularly religious, in fact most are not, nonetheless feel quite stifled in that area of their lives. On the other hand, Gloria, and this is where some of the good news, some of the optimism should come to play in, you know, the rate of intermarriage between Muslims and non-Muslims in France is high and is only growing. And historically, intermarriage is a great indicator of integration. It also keeps a check on each of the parties' communities and the most extremist elements in them. So again, that piece of the story will never make the news. Where are the visuals? Where are the, where's the sensationalism behind it? But let's not forget that there is a bigger picture here.
And you may be saying it's sort of a generational issue, that as much as people like Fran and Jeremy are out there fighting this terrorism, that in fact it may take a generation or two.
Precisely. I can't begin to tell you how many messages I get from young Muslims around the world, including in France, who say that, we are going to be raising our children with the values represented by reformist Islam.
Okay, we're going to go to Paris for a moment. We're going to go to Fred Pleitgen. He's in the middle of the massive rally there. You see there are more than 50 state leaders there rallying in defiance of the terror that struck Paris this week. Fred, from your vantage point, tell me what it's like.
Well, it's absolutely amazing, Gloria. We're right in the middle of this massive march, which is called the Unity March. I'm actually marching with the folks right now. And what they're obviously showing is that in the aftermath of what happened here over the past couple of days of these horrible terror attacks, is that France as a nation is not going to allow itself to be divided. They want to show unity, and that's exactly what this rally is about. It's about unity of the nation. And really, people here were telling me is that after what happened here, after the terror attacks, they believe that France had two possibilities. They were either going to let themselves be divided by the radical forces. Obviously, on the one hand, you have the radical Islamists that you have here, and of course also the radical right wing that you have in France. But they say instead they want to show unity. So what they're doing right now is they're beginning this march, and it is absolutely amazing to see how many people came here, because remember that it's a fairly impromptu organization here. There's no speakers here, there's no stage or anything. There's a couple of people here in the middle of the Place de la République who are sort of leading the chants a little bit, but they don't have any sort of sound systems. Nevertheless, this crowd is absolutely on the same page with the way that they talk, with the chants that they give, and all of them are about unity. All of them is about not being intimidated, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and of course, generally, liberté, the freedom that really France stands for, and that's so important as a French value. So it is a very positive vibe that's coming from here. As you can see, the French flag that's sort of dangling over my head. So it's a very positive vibe here that's coming from the people, and they say their reaction to all of this is going to be one of trying to unite everybody here in France, the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and of course the Christian community as well. They see that as something that is very important and something that certainly is under threat, Gloria.
A tremendous showing of national unity. Thanks so much, and we'll be getting back to you later. Let me go to my my panel here. First to you, Jeremy Bash. When you do have this sort of outpouring, as you have in France, how does that affect intelligence operations? Do people become more aware, more supportive, more willing to fund, more willing to surveil after going through something like this, or not?
I think you put your finger on a very good point, which is at moments since 9/11, I think the public in general has lost focus on the threat from Islamic extremist terrorist organizations. And this has kind of waxed and waned in our country and in the public dialogue in the last 13 years. And at times of danger and at times when we see terrorist attacks, there have been more support for more aggressive intelligence operations. But then when we go through several months where we don't have an attack, you hear voices saying, well, why do we have to have so much security? Why do we have to have so much intelligence? And so I think this is going to be a wake-up call. And the international unity, I think, is exactly the right message to send, that we have to be united, we have to come together, and we have to be forceful and aggressive in our confrontation of these terrible, terrible, evil forces.
Well, Fran, you sat at the White House. Talk about the coordination. I mean, Eric Holder said earlier in the show, we're going to increase coordination. There's going to be a meeting in mid-February about increased. I thought there was coordination between the European allies and America in all our counterterror activities. Is there not enough? Or
Look, the French have been, and the British are particularly
very aggressive,
very strong allies, a good exchange of information. But, look, we know pre-9/11, we even internally didn't share the way we needed to. I think that's one of the issues the French are going to have to look at.
Do intelligence operatives just not like to share? Is that?
Well, it's sort of right. You're trained to keep secrets. But I will tell you, this show of national unity, what viewers are seeing on their screen, what's most important to me from my time at the White House is you've got to harness that now, right? It's more than just showing up. You see King Abdullah and Queen Rania of Jordan, very important. But where are the leaders of Egypt and Saudi and the Emirates? We want our Arab allies. This is their fight, too. It's not just a European and Western fight. And so I think it's very important that it's not just a show of unity. You've got, Jeremy pointed out earlier to me, you got Mahmoud Abbas there, the Palestinian leader, who just got a deal with Hamas, a terrorist organization. It's more than just showing up, Gloria.
It's kind of interesting that he is actually showing up, though.
That's right. But you got to do more than show up.
Right.
It's not good enough to just show up.
You got to do more than show up. And I can tell you all that, having been on the receiving end of death threats myself for writing about the need for reform among my fellow Muslims, I have sometimes received information about those threats from journalists before I've received them from either the FBI or from other police forces around the world. NYPD, by the way, the best counterterrorism force in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Everybody else, they need work.
Now, and I should say that you are the founder of the Moral Courage Project, and I just want to ask all of you, if a young person who is in the process of being radicalized is watching this picture that is so stunning to us, what's the reaction of that person? Wouldn't it just inspire more defiance if you're already sort of on the road to being radicalized? I mean, it may unite us, but what does it do to the young radical?
It's hard to get inside that individual's head. And on some level, Gloria, I think we have to be kind of radically honest with ourselves. On the fringe of this Islamic extremism, or global jihad, is basically a death cult. It's a nihilist, stop at nothing. They don't share any of our values. They're not going to look to do anything. And there are terrorists around the world who fan that emotion and that movement. And so there's very little we can do other than, frankly, gird ourselves for a fight and take them off the battlefield. But then there's a whole other swath of individuals who are wondering, hey, wait a second. Do they have a point here? Is there something here in it for me? Is there something that I'm attracted to? And that's where I think, frankly,
martyrdom?
Arab and Muslim voices need to take the lead in explaining that the faith of Islam is not one that has to or necessarily does preach radicalism or terrorism.
And this is why part of what the Moral Courage Project does is we run a worldwide network of advisors who are available to anybody, including any Muslim, who is struggling with faith and has questions about faith. We are trying, therefore, to be on the front lines of preempting violence that might occur if we weren't there. But you see, this is where support from intelligence forces, from governments, even from private corporations that may be able to finance, some of the work that this kind of a network, my kind of a network does. We're all in it together. And I think a lot of people kind of assume that, Fran does what she does, and Jeremy does what he does, and Irshad does what she does, and, I'm appreciative of them all, but I can't contribute. not true. Everybody has a role in this.
Well,